What's up everybody, Chris coming to you from Salty Island, and we're starting up yet another new series here. We've got the third edition of Age of Sigmar. We're diving in. The new rules are pretty hot. Everyone in our area is definitely jumping on board. There's a lot to unpack here with this book, but for people like ourselves that are brand new, just getting into the game, we decided to come at it from the narrative point of view like we do with 40k, and we're hopping straight in, and we're going to be talking today about the Age of Sigmar version of Crusade called Path to Glory. Now, if you want to go ahead and learn about the rules, there's a lot of channels that talk about Age of Sigmar specifically. I'm going to direct you over to the channel 2+ Tough. They do a lot of narrative things and talk about the lore. What we're going to do is I want to specifically talk about Path to Glory, how it compares to the 40k version, and then talk to you about what we're doing to jump into Age of Sigmar. So let's start out here with what is Path to Glory. So for those of you who've played 40k and have heard me talk about Crusade mode, Path to Glory is their sort of narrative army builder type of gameplay. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to start small. What I will say is Path to Glory is like Crusade 2.0. They fixed a lot of the issues that I personally had, and while I know some of the community feedback, when it changes, any changes that you make, you're going to get people who like the change and people who don't like the change. So as we go through the book, I'm going to talk about the ones that I like and point out why some people might not like it, so that way you can form your own opinion on it, and hopefully you'll have an idea of whether this is how you want to jump into Age of Sigmar, or if this is something, if you're already playing Age of Sigmar, you want to try and check out. So popping open the book here, narrative play, it gives basically a story of your leader, Warlord as you will, and he's gathering together his followers, and there's quite a few things that they add. And what I'll say is the first thing that Path to Glory does is it removes a lot of the in-game bookkeeping. Now, you've heard me kind of complain about this, and we actually don't use a lot of the Crusade rules because I feel it is overly bookkeepy. It's more things to keep track of than, I want to in the middle of a game. And on top of that, since we do play so many different armies, it's already quite a bit for me to learn all the rules for all the different armies and memorizing the stratagems and the different combos. And then on top of that, trying to add a bunch of optional Crusade and then specific upgrades for units, it got to be kind of a lot. So the first thing I will say, especially for new players, is the Path to Glory Crusade is a lot less bookkeeping in a good way. Path to Glory overview. First thing you'll do is you'll choose the faction that you're going to play, obviously whatever models that you like, and then the realm. The realm is a narrative type thing for you to pick, how you kind of want to theme your army, what story and what narrative you want to give to it. It doesn't actually have a gameplay impact, which I think is fine. It is a change from the second edition, I know, where the realm had direct rules impact, but personally I feel that was a bit overkill and unnecessary. Step 2, choose your starting size and territory. This part is actually something that I think is great. The starting size can be whatever size, and there's a bunch of different things, all the way from the smallest, which is 600 points, all the way up to you can just start with a 2,000 point army if you already have a big collection and you're playing with your friends who also have a big collection and you just want to use all your toys. The territories is actually my favorite inclusion that I wish Crusade mode had. It is an out-of-game thing that you track that helps you both develop your narrative and helps you grow the warband. And so we'll get to that in a second, but know that that's something to look forward to. It's very cool. Step 3, order of battle. All that is that's your pool. Just like Crusade, you get a pool, and then when you're ready to play a game, based on whatever size you're going to play, you draw from that pool, and that's what you put on the table. Step 4, core enhancements. These are your upgrades. Your relic, your warlord trait, your spells, which are basically psychic powers, but you cast spells because it's magic. You have prayers, you can pray to the gods and have them bless you, and all sorts of things. That's the core enhancements. And lastly, you pick your first quest, and the quest is actually another cool add-on. And what the quests do is during the gameplay, you can attempt to end the game with certain restrictions. If you do, you earn points towards completing quests, and when you complete your quest you get rewards. It can be anything from finding a new relic to exploring for new lands, or all sorts of different things. We'll get into it when there's a list. And obviously the one thing I will say is, just like with 40k, the battle tomes are essentially Age of Sigmar codexes. So I'm going to try to use the correct terms here. The battle tomes will have hyped up versions of all of these things, right, for Path to Glory. So just like with Crusade mode, when you get your new book, you get all the new narrative fluff, all the good stuff. So looking forward to seeing where that goes. Alright, so let's kind of dive into this here, and I'm going to actually take you through my process of building up my faction. So first things first, step 1, choose a faction. I have decided to play Blades of Khorne. I've been wanting to build a Khorne Berserker army for a while. I haven't gotten the rules for Khorne World Eaters yet. So instead, I'm going to go ahead and put it into Age of Sigmar. We're going to play the Blades of Khorne, which is the mortal followers who worship Khorne in the Age of Sigmar, as well as the demons that they summon to support them. Salty Shy, he's not here today. He's on a cruise right now, but he has decided to play the faction called Slaves to Darkness. That is the faction that essentially won the Battle of the Old World, led by Archaon, the Ever-Chosen. He's kind of like the big bad Blessed of Chaos. He's like the Abaddon of Chaos, except Archaon actually won Realm. So there are 8 realms that you can choose from here. Again, they're all narrative, but currently Age of Sigmar has a lot of fluff. A very, very good narrative lore and background. Highly recommend checking it out. I think it's really interesting. And they've really fleshed out the different realms. So I have chosen to go with Gur, which is the realm of Beast, my faction. When I was thinking of my faction, I was thinking of the movie Black Panther, where there's that one tribe that lives way up in the mountains, and they just don't give a shit about the high tech of the city. They're like fighting, they're swole. So I'm gonna have like snow bases, and they worship Khorne. I've decided to name my clan, my tribe, my warband, the Blood Drinkers. Alright, step 2, starting size and starting territories. So this will kind of dictate how big you want to start out with. Since we are brand new, like I have not played Age of Sigmar 2nd edition, and I'm just jumping into it here. So we're starting out at Vanguard size, which gives us 1 starting territory, 600 point limit, you can have 6 units maximum, and you get 5 glory points, which is like Crusade points. It's the kind of the currency for building up your force. Now, one thing that I do want to let people know, if you're brand new to Age of Sigmar, unlike 40k, that 600 point limit is not a like be all end all. With Age of Sigmar, you don't really min-max your points quite to the extent that you do in 40k. Where in 40k, if you play like, let's say, 1,000 point game, you want to get to like 999 or 1,000 points, and you like tweaking, you're like adding one model, taking away a model to get a plasma pistol. You know how it be. In Age of Sigmar, it's very different. When you pick your units come with a price, and it comes with a fixed number of guys. If your unit has options, like you have a 2-handed swords for all of them, or you have sword and shield for all of them, regardless of what you pick, it doesn't change the point value. It's all built, and the unit is what it is, right? So even if you have different options, it doesn't matter. The point value for the unit is the same. The game is balanced around that idea. With that said, something that was pointed out to me is you don't have to get all the way up to 600, and in fact sometimes that's not ideal. There are times, like for example, where if you just want to take a specific unit because it synergizes really well with your army, but the unit might be cheaper than, say, taking a different unit that's more expensive but doesn't synergize as well, you may as well just take the model you want. Obviously you don't want to play extremely under, like I don't want to go 500 points. I could probably just find another unit that's 100 points to put into my army. But if you were at 580, don't sweat it, right? 580, 600, you're close enough. Your army, if it's built the way you want to and you can play it well, that's actually what's more important. Don't feel like you need to get exactly to 600. Something that I had to kind of get over when I started looking into the rules on this game. Once I figured that out, though, it was much easier, and I kind of relaxed and just picked the army that I wanted to pick. Unit limit is 6, right? You have 6 units total. There are ways to increase that limit. We'll get into that in a second. And glory points. You don't have to spend them right away, but you'll see how you get to spend them in the future. Alright, territories is one of the cool things here. So on the right side, I'm going to skip ahead to step 3 so that I can reference something here. On the order of battle, which is the units you get to pick, there are limits to what you get to start with. So you get up to 3 heroes, which are like your HQ or your solo elites. You get 1 monster. Monsters are the big monsters, like dragons and like a Hydra. You know what I'm talking about. The war machines, like there's ballista, there's cannons in this. Think fantasy, like what you get, like those siege engines that you see in Lord of the Rings. All of that stuff. Wizards are wizards, they cast them spells. That's what you get in Fantasyland. Priests can pray to the gods. The gods are real in this setting, and there's lots of them. It's not just Sigmar. There's like Alariel, who's the god of life. There is Gork and Mork is actually a thing. You can pray to Gork and Mork, and he'll come down and bless you. So priests will pray. Think of the priests like your chaplains. Reinforced units. So in Age of Sigmar, like I said, you don't have to worry about how many people are in a unit. If the rules say that you get a unit of 10, that's what you get. You get 10. You don't get 11. You don't get 12. You get 10. If you buy another unit, that's 10 more, right? That's 20. And if you want to reinforce a unit, you basically add the 2 units together, and you have, instead of 2 units of 10, you now have 1 unit of 20. That's how that works in this game. So you don't really ever get a unit of 15, it's 2 units of 10. Or if your minimum is 5, it's 2 units of 5 or 1 unit of 10. So reinforcing is when you essentially take 2 units and make them 1 unit. And if you reinforce it twice, right, you add a third one, so a unit of 10 becomes a unit of 20 for 1 reinforcement, and then it can go all the way up to a unit of 30 for 2 reinforcements. Per the rules of the game, only battle line, which is essentially like think core for 40k, only battle line units can go up and be reinforced twice. Everyone else can only be reinforced once. So it's nice and easy to build an army. You don't have to overthink it. Getting back to step 2 with your territories. So as you can see, there's different territories. There's like an old keep, there's the wildlands, there's the forgotten mine, and each of these territories will increase the limit of your pool of your warband by 1 of whatever it is. So say you want a 4th hero, then you want that old keep. It's a lonely keep, and the lands around it are ruled by a powerful vassal of your domain. All right, so you get a narrative piece to it, and you can increase the number of heroes in your warband by 1. So for my faction, I kind of wanted to go ahead and lean very heavily towards priests. I like the idea of praying to Khorne, and Khorne sending his blessings down upon my enemies. So I have chosen the Sacred Site, which will give me the option in the future to take a 2nd priest in my pool. And again, this isn't the army that you're fielding to battle. The order of battle is the pool, the general collection that you have for your warband, and you draw from this when you go to play a game up to whatever size that you and your opponent agree on. So I want 2 priests. I think there's some cool things that the Bloodborne have, and praying to Khorne is definitely a good thing. Next thing is the Stronghold. Again, this is actually another cool thing here, where basically it's your keep, it's your fort, whatever the home village, base, castle that your faction has. So for my narrative here, we're up in the mountains. We have our village that we've secured in the area. It's a holy land. What my tribe found is a river of blood. That clearly that was a blessing from Khorne and a sign from Khorne that this is where they were to settle, and they built their village around this. So they have the Red River Keep, and the sacred site is the blood pools. It's a lake of blood that they found, not cursed in the least, not blasphemous or chaotic, but definitely a blessing from Khorne. So your Stronghold, you can start and you can control up to 3 territories at once with the basic Stronghold. And so that's the territories on the left. After the first one that we get for free, just for starting out, the Sacred Site, you'll have to explore and try and find more, which we'll get into in the post-game section. You can have barracks. You can get up to 3 barracks, and the more barracks you have, the more you raise the unit limit that you get. So if you want more than 6 units in the pool, you need to build some barracks to house those troops. Alright, and lastly here you have glory points. So during the glory points, that's essentially the XP that you get, and you'll be able to both earn them and then you spend them. And we'll just keep track of that as we continue on our narrative here after we play future games. Alright, so step 3, we already talked about the order of battle. We're going to skip ahead on that one to the next page. And here's where you have the Warlord. So, just like in 40k, Warlord can't be someone named, right? So it's your story. It's not the story of the named character already existing in the setting. You can't pick Archeon, the Everchosen. You can't pick Be'lakor. Name your own hero. Pick your units, add them up, whatever up to your point limit is. Now, battalions. The rules for battalions are essentially like the formations or the force org chart from 40k. Alright, and faction terrain. It specifically says you do not need to add faction terrain to your order of battle. You just get it, which is actually really nice because my order of battle is actually quite full right from the get-go. But there are a lot of factions that for free get some type of faction terrain. Nurgle gets their tree. I believe the Sylvaneth gets like their forest. Khorne gets an altar. There's all sorts of different stuff out there. It's very cool, and you just get it. You're not penalized for it, and so that's great. Alright, step 4, core enhancements. So this one is a little bit of a change from 40k also. So in 40k, as you know, you can basically spend points to get items, right? You can get upgrades, you get items, you can spend your command points to get more relics, you can spend command points to get more warlord traits. Not really so much in Age of Sigmar. Doesn't really work that way. Alright, and picking your first quest. There's quite a few here. We're going to go ahead and flip over to the page really quick and show you all the different quests that are out there. Like I said, there's all sorts of things from finding an artifact to getting a battalion. You find a specific blessing. You can defend your realm, which gives you just more glory points so that you can spend and buy more things. And there's different ways to complete it. So as you can see, each quest has a specific requirement to complete the quest. Some might be do this thing one time. Others might be the more times you do a specific action, you generate points, and when you reach X number of points, the quest is obtained. Either way, upon completing the quest, you get whatever the item is. So you might get an additional relic, you might get an additional spell, like different spell that you can use. Alright, one thing I also want to go into here is when you play a game of Path to Glory. Now, there's different tiers of games that you can play, and they are corresponding to the size of your stronghold. Remember, there's 3 sizes of strongholds, so there's 3 tiers of battle: low, middle, high. Basically, what the restriction of the stronghold gives you is how many of each thing that you can use. So, for example, if you just have a regular stronghold, you're just starting out, your army that you can bring to the table has 1 command trait, 1 artifact of power, 1 spell, 1 prayer, 1 unique enhancement. Now let's say you've been playing for a while. You've upgraded, you've completed some quests, and you've got more things in your pool that you can draw from, and then you upgrade your stronghold to the second one, which is an imposing stronghold. If you play a game and both you and your opponent have an imposing stronghold, you can play with more toys, right? It's like an agreed upon thing that you're both bigger and badder armies. So at that point, you can get up to 3 command traits, up to 2 artifacts, 2 spells, 2 prayers, and 2 unique enhancements. And then there's the top tier, which is the Mighty Stronghold. If you're the balleress of the baller and you've collected all the good stuff, you can get up to like 5 command traits, 3 artifacts, 3 spells, 3 prayers, 3 enhancements. Now let's say I am a noob and I just have my basic stronghold, and I roll into my local shop, and the people at the shop who've been playing Age of Sigmar since the beginning of time all have a mighty stronghold. Well, the rules specifically state that you will play to whatever the lower tier is. So, for example, if I play against a person, we're all going to just play at the low tier. And once I go home and, they're just playing amongst themselves, they can go back up and play at whatever tier they want. They have the option to play at whatever tier. If they want to play at a lower tier, or if they want to play at the biggest tier, that's their choice. But if someone can't play at the bigger tier, you always default to play with that lower person. That way you don't ever get that feeling like you're just getting crushed. So I do kind of want to segue at this point and talk a little bit about some of the thoughts that I've heard from people who've played this. The first one that I've heard is there are some complaints that when you've played a lot of games and you've grown your faction, you don't have that feeling of I'm more powerful, because when you go and play a game, you're still just playing the game as whatever. It's still a fair game. You're not like crushing your opponent. And on one hand, I can see that. I do play a lot of competitive, gaming. Like, I play a lot of fighting games, as you might have seen me stream in the past, or other things like that. One thing I will say is, if you're the kind of person who feels that because you played a lot of game, you deserve to crush noobs and just have better things than new players, then you might not be that kind of narrative player. I'm just throwing it out there that at the end of the day, this is still a game. The game intention is to have fun, and if your idea of fun is to bring a 2,000 point army against someone who has a 600 point army and use all 5 of your relics at the same time when they have 1, well, you're kind of I'm gonna call it here, you're kind of a dick. So this channel is probably not for you. Just gonna throw it out there. The other thing, and this one is a little bit more valid, is that there's a little bit less flavor in the game, and that one's pretty fair, actually. I'm not going to shit on people who have that concern, and you're not wrong. Compared to Crusade, where each unit is tracked and each unit can get different upgrades and different scars, and every unit is worthy of a name and a legacy and a story. And that's perfectly valid, because the Path to Glory does not do that. The Path to Glory will track the heroes in a much lighter way, and the units are done in a much more abstract way than it is in the Crusade mode. And if you're the kind of person who did not think that the Crusade mode was too much bookkeeping, then you are probably going to be very underwhelmed with Path to Glory. And to that, I'm sorry. I don't think you're wrong. Crusade is fantastic for that. But for people who, like myself, who felt that Crusade was overly bookkeeping, we have, for example, Salty Shy and I have extremely large 40k armies, upwards of 4,000 points. And I personally do not want my 4 different units of Rubric Marines to each have 3 different upgrades and 2 different scars, and they're all different, and I have to remember which is which and track them all separately. And my 8 sorcerers and 2 demon princes, and I've got 4 different rhinos, each with different upgrades and scars. It's a lot. It's a lot. And so there's pros and cons. Definitely pros and cons to it. The other thing that I will say that's different is that 40k has now 3 campaign books, with a 4th coming soon, and half the armies have released their codex, so they have their fancy rules. So there's a lot of flavor that's out there. Even if you don't have your codex in 40k yet, there's 3 different campaign books that have unique relics and upgrades and scars and battle zones and different settings you can play in, and there's stuff everywhere that you can find to add unique flavor to your army. In Age of Sigmar, there's the base book. The Stormcast Eternals and the Orcs have a fancy book, and that's it. It is very underwhelming. Now, it's Games Workshop. They want to sell you books. The new codexes are going to have the new hotness. They're going to release campaign books. They've released 3 campaign books in 40k, and they haven't even released all the codexes yet. So you know it's coming. And to that, I'm going to have to just say, you know, a little patience. But it would have been nice if they had released some kind of a campaign pack or something. Just something to give some flavor, because the base book doesn't give you a lot, as you can see already. Moving on here, do want to go ahead and talk a little bit about the aftermath sequence. This is what happens at the end of your path to glory, right? You earn glory points. Glory points are the currency that you spend. You can use it to buy units. You can use it to recover units that have taken wounds. You can use it to pay for new territories that you find when you explore. All sorts of different stuff. Just know that glory points are the currency. Injuries. Only characters have a specific character table. As you can see here on the right, 1, 2, and 3, your characters are dead, just dead. If you throw a 12, you know, they gain some renown, they gain some great reputation. Some things in between, from minor injuries to critical injuries. But these are exclusive to your character or hero type models. Now your units, which we'll flip over to the next page, they're tracked a little differently. They have casualty rolls in which you just throw a dice for each model in the unit. So a 10-man unit, throw 10 dice. For each roll of a 1, that unit, that model sits out in the next game. You can pay some glory points to try and heal them and recover them. If they all die, then that unit is wiped out. So it's a lot more abstract in that way from the 40k. When it comes to the units, on the other hand, and they gain veteran abilities, which I personally think is a very nice change from the way that Crusade works. Again, this one's my opinion. I definitely understand people who like the Crusade version better. Not gonna knock it. This is again just my opinion because I felt it was very bookkeepy. This one's a lot less bookkeepy. Right now, as of the base book, there's only 6 veteran abilities. Each one provides a one-time use of a one-time upgrade. So for example, Discipline Battle Drill allows the unit during the fight phase to add 1 to wound rolls for attacks made by this unit until the end of the phase. So it's a one shot, you spend it, gives you a buff. After that, it's done. You can't have the same ability twice, but you can have more than one ability, you know, as you get more veteran abilities. It is extremely underwhelming, I understand. There's only 6, so there's only so much you can get. But with that said, it's very easy to track. Like, you can just use a token. You just mark, you know, +1 to wound. When you spend the token, you remove the token from next to the unit. You know you spent it. It's a lot quicker and a lot easier. And there's no negative ones. Like, there's not a... there's no scars. Like, the unit permanently has -1 to move. The only scars are when, you know, you roll that 1, that model sits out. So maybe a unit of 10, you roll 2 1s. The next game it starts with a unit of 8, right? So it's much easier to track. You don't have to remember all these additional rules on top of it. And it's more about just playing the game than it is trying to min-max and optimize all these different little abilities. Also, it does keep from having some of those extremely broken combinations. You know the ones that I'm talking about in 40k, where you have like 2+ to hit rerolling 1s and other trick jank like that. So it kind of takes out that sort of thing that gives extremely overpowered units. In regards to heroes, there's 2 tiers. There's your Rising Hero, there's your Mighty Hero, right? You need 15 points to become a Mighty Hero. Your Warlord automatically starts as a Mighty Hero, so kudos to him. The only difference between a Rising Hero and a Mighty Hero is the Mighty Hero gains a command trait, which is essentially like, think of it like a Warlord trait. And that's pretty much what they get, right? So Again, you don't have to track and remember a lot of things. With that said, again, I understand it is extremely underwhelming right now. And it does lose a lot of the flavor that sometimes 40k gets when you have, these scars and these heroic relics and these heroic traits. You don't really get that anymore. So that's kind of gone. So people who have that complaint, I feel you, I understand. It would have been nice if there was maybe something in between a little bit more, but that's just how they designed the game. Sigmar is designed as a much more straightforward, just get to the game and play. 40k is definitely the game for people who just like to optimize. Do you complete your quests, right? That's something that you do in the aftermath phase. Manage your stronghold. As you can see, you can upgrade the stronghold. It takes you 30 glory points. So you're probably going to want to, have the maximum number of lands, have the maximum number of like artifacts and relics and command abilities and spells. So you're gonna have to complete quite a few quests, and then you need 30 glory points to upgrade to that imposing stronghold, and then another 60 on top of that to get that mighty stronghold. So it's definitely a path. It's a long path, but one that allows you to really build that narrative up and just play a lot of games. So that's definitely good. Barracks, as you can see here, it costs 5 glory to add 1 barracks. Each barrack adds the number of the number of units increases by 2, up to a maximum of 30. Territories. So at the end of the battle, you can go and explore for territories. You do this whether you win or lose. And you roll on the table, which we're going to flip over to really quick. So you can see there's a table, and you roll on that, and that's the territory that you find. If you find a territory that you want to enfold into your warband, you have to spend 10 glory, and then you can add that to your, to the area that you've settled in. You don't have to accept it. You don't have to spend the 10 glory. Sometimes you just won't have 10 glory. That's really up to you. As you can see, 61 to 66 says special territory, basically implying that the books, the battle tomes, will have unique territory to each faction. Again, Stormcast and Orcs, lucky you. Everyone else, we're waiting for that. Looking forward to seeing what they come up with. Step 7, you can add new units, you can recuperate units, you can reinforce units. Like I said, if you have 10 warriors and you want to take it up to a block of 20, you can pay to reinforce them. There's all a glory point cost depending on the cost of the unit. And again, because the units don't pay for upgrades, it just is what it is. It's very straightforward. And that is Path to Glory. It is my wrap-up thoughts here on Path to Glory. It is lighter and much more streamlined than Crusade mode, which I like a lot. But that lightness and that streamlinedness comes at the cost of flavor and depth, which is always the big balancing act for any type of game, right? The more in-depth you can be, the more uniqueness that you can give each unit, the more complicated it becomes, and honestly the more difficult it does become to balance it, and opens the way for some abusiveness, and sometimes just good luck will give you, incredibly powerful things that might allow you to run away with the game. I personally, from a game design standpoint, prefer games that A, have a sense of balance, and B, are more about playing the game and just having fun than it is about trying to sit there and hyper optimize every little thing. So for me, Path to Glory has a lot of appeal. With that said, if it's not your flavor, then that's perfectly fair. Know that Crusade mode, I definitely recommend checking it out if you want, a lot more of that depth. And it's 40k. That will always be my first love, and what we do here on the channel. But with that said, Age of Sigmar has some amazing models. They're just the sickest, and we're really looking forward to playing it. Videos run a little bit long here, longer than I intended. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break this into 2 parts here. This is just my review of Path to Glory, and then On the next video, we're going to show off the models that I have painted for my path to glory, talk about my fluff and my narrative, and we will go ahead and talk about my first game ever of Age of Sigmar. Thanks for checking us out, everybody. Hope to see you in the next video. Peace out, everybody.